Alright, hi there. I'm Shadow. You probably already know that, though. Uh, so, I made a small little short video talking about how I kind of just want to read over part of my book, Snake Hill, just to, like, get people interested in it a little, just to see what's actually in it. Uh, I decided against doing a live stream just because I yap a lot, and I feel like having a live stream would just be like 3 hours of not even focusing on what I am doing. And also, I don't actually know how to do it. So instead, we're just doing a video with just me reading over my own book. That's all I'm doing. That's all I'm doing. Alright, and I have it pulled up here. I looked. I can look again, but so far I have 78 pages worth of content and 103 pages in total. But this is Act 1 of 4, including a prologue and an epilogue. So 30 chapters in total, spread across 4 acts. And I finished Act 1 recently. I finished writing Act 1 recently, so I've decided to go ahead and read over it then. And I'm gonna try to make it sound alright. Hopefully. I have a terrible microphone. It's like an Xbox headphone microphone. It's terrible. You should really look through all the warnings before reading this. You should be able to find it by just go into my Tumblr and just searching Snake Hill for the tags, and you should be able to find it with the link to read it and all the warnings you need to have. That's how it should work. Please go read the warnings. I'm begging you. Please read the warnings. This is a horror story. This is a horror story. Okay? Oh, I forgot to mention the book is called Snake Hill: Seeing Ghosts. Um, I want Snake Hill to be kind of a threequel, trequel, trilogy. That's the word. I want it to be a trilogy book series with Seeing Ghosts being the first book. And I have some of the second book planned out already, and I'm obviously have every chapter of this planned out. The only problem is writing everything out and making sure it's okay, but I think it's been okay so far, hopefully. And actually, I've been publishing the chapters here for a while. I've actually been publishing the chapters here because I could not for the life of me find any better place to post the chapters. It's fine though. It's fine. Yeah, this is the complete Act 1 right here. Prologue. You know, okay. All good books start with a prologue. We have many books that start with a prologue. Some books don't need a prologue. I think this needed a prologue just to set the scene a little. Just to set the scene a little, that's all. Alright, prologue. Out there in the woods, danger always lurks. Creatures out there in the beyond will try to chase you, and when they get you, they will kill you. But they can't catch you if they don't see you. As long as we are watched over by the sisters, none of us will be harmed. That is why we never travel out into the forest. The sisters watch over our town and keep dangerous creatures away. Okay, I want to say that this first part here is inspired a little bit by Watership Down, a line in Watership Down. Prince with 1,000 enemies, but to kill you, they must catch you. Just that line in the beginning of Watership Down, with El Halahara, Ella Halahara, El Halahara, or however you say the rabbit's name. It's it's basically just inspired from that line in the book. In the movie? Was it in the book? I don't know. It was in the movie. But it was, I thought it would be like a fun little thing to write in. They make sure that Daniel, are you listening to me? Danny looked up at his mom as he suddenly realized she had been noticing him looking away. Huh? Yeah, I am. I'm listening, Mom. Danny said and smiled apologetically. His mother smiled softly, her face full of warmth for her son. It's all right. I know you would rather go play with your friend, she said. Danny shook his head and said, No, I still want to listen to you talk. He stood up and looked up at his mom. There was such an eagerness in his eyes, it could almost make his mother cry. She smiled and rested her hand on Danny's head. You'll hear plenty more tomorrow. Now, you can go scamper off and play, she said. Danny stared at his mom for a moment longer, as if trying to convince himself to stay. He seemed to make up his mind and turned, running out of the house to go play with his friends. His mother sat back and stared at the window. She could hear the children outside, playing with their pure innocence. A few of them had even run past the window, but she didn't pay mind to them. She looked into the woods beyond. Even with the sun high above, the forest behind the chain fence seemed shrouded in darkness. Wait, hold on. Even with the sun high above, the forest behind the chained fence seemed shrouded in darkness, as if it was eating up any light that came near. It felt uneasy to stare at. She knew no one was there. Not anymore. She keeps us safe. She always has. She will not let him return. She will keep me safe. Roses give me strength. Alright, that's just the little prologue I made. Okay, I do want to say, I know people probably know what Danny looks like by now, but I am going to show him off because that is my son. That is my creature. That is my OC. That is my creature. That is my son, and I'm gonna show him off now. Oh gosh. Why does it always open like so big? What is with that? I do want to say. Okay. So this is what Danny looks like, right? Not in the prologue, though. He does not look like this in the prologue. At all. Do I have it written down somewhere? Do I have it written down? Let's see. I might have to censor this because I have a lore document I'm opening. A lore document. I have all my lore in. But, I don't want to show it because that's going to spoil my own book. And I can't spoil my own book because then people won't read it because I've already told it. And then no money. And then I got no money. Do I have it? Good gosh. Do I have it written down somewhere? There we go. Okay, I'm just going, that is all going to be censored because that is a lot of lore I'm not sharing. Okay, but he looked like this at the age of 10. The prologue is set when he's like 5 or 6, let's say. Now I don't remember when James showed up. Oh my gosh, bro. Oh. Let's see. Do I have it down when James was adopted into this family? Let's see. No. No. I don't. Oh no, I don't. I don't. Do I have it in this document? Please tell me I have it written somewhere. I didn't write it down. Okay, well this is a bit embarrassing. But I have it somewhere in my notes that okay, so like in the prologue, Danny looks like this. No, he doesn't. Wait. What? No, okay. At the age of 10, Danny looks like this. In the prologue, he's under the age of 10. He does not look like this at all. He is a normal human boy. I don't have his younger design drawn at all yet, but he still has the same colored eyes, and he has blonde hair. Like, very short blonde hair, though. And I think I wrote somewhere that his dad has a very, like, reddish brown hair, and his mom has, like, dark, like, black hair. And yeah. Why is he not agreeing with his hair's colored? Because, I don't know. It'll look weird. Okay. Can I show my other son now? Yes, I can. Okay. And then we have James here, who was adopted by the age of 8. Danny is 2 years younger than him, so 6. So yeah, Danny in the prologue is between the ages of 5 and 6. James might have been there at that time. Maybe. I'm not going to say when, but it's like between the ages of 5 and 6, okay? Yeah, I'm just going to keep that up in case I need it again. in case I need it again. Okay. Oh, back to my yap session. Act 1. Alright. So, I named every single chapter in this because I was like, okay, how do I split it all up? I know, I'll name everything to kind of give me an idea of what points I want and how far to spread it across. And this was like 3 or 2 years ago when I actually sat down to write everything. This is like the 5th version of the written version of Snake Hill. This is not the 5th version of Snake Hill, it's just the one I have written. The 5th installment, and the final one, hopefully. Oh, hopefully I don't decide to ruin this for myself by rewriting the entire thing. That would be terrible, actually. I'm not even joking, man. That would suck so bad. Thankfully I'm not going to rewrite it. Yeah, thankfully I'm not going to rewrite it. Hopefully. Never again. I'm never writing ever again after this. Alright, Act 1, Chapter 1. A Normal Day in Suburbia. 23 years later. I want to specify that, just to have that, let it be known, I want to specify that. 23 years after the prologue. Danny in this first story is 28. Just putting it out here. Letting everyone know so no one gets any confusion or anything. Danny sat on the couch as he stared out at the back door. The clear glass made it easy to see what is... already messing up. The clear glass made it easy to see what was outside. And it was all normal landscape. The same trees and houses Danny had been acquainted with for the past 28 years. He looked away, choosing to stare up at the ceiling instead. Someone's banging on my wall. What the heck? The empty house was fairly quiet, and that's what Danny preferred. To be alone with his thoughts and no one interrupting him. But there was just one interruption. The clock on the wall ticked softly as time passed. It wasn't obnoxious, but noticeable in the quiet house. It bothered Danny, though. The repetitive sound got on his nerve every time he heard it. Eventually, the ticks forced Danny to look up at it. He stared for a quick heartbeat, reading the time. 2:30 p.m. Alright, something I want to do a lot in my story is, like, give a lot of, like, dates and, like, when things happen. Mainly because of the second book is supposed to take place in October. So right now it's... Please don't tell me I'm messing my months up. Let's see if I'm stupid after all. Okay, so right now, in this book, it's September. The next month would be October. And I want to make a point of that because October in Snake Hill is a really big time, and it's when they have a really big festival for one of the entities the town worships, being Withered Rose. I probably won't show any of the other festivals that they have for Velvet Feathers or Roaring Tides, because Rose is my favorite, and she is the one I'm focusing on. She is the one I'm focusing on. I do want to say, I do have, like, other things planned out for, like, other parts of the world of Snake Hill, because, like, these 3 books only focus mainly on, like, Rose and stuff she's done. They don't really focus on her sisters, Velvet Feathers, or Roaring Tides that much. Instead, they just focus on her and her atrocities she's committed. That she's gonna say something, I don't know. Would she make up the excuse of, I'm just a girl, as, like, opposed to committing horrendous crimes? I feel like she wouldn't. I feel like one of her sisters would instead. But anyways, I kind of want to do a thing where... Actually, I'm not going to go over that. I'm not going to spoil any plans I have. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to read this normally instead of doing any voice. I'll do stupid, obnoxious voices, but... Can I do a Sonic the Hedgehog impression? Wait. No, I'm not going to do a Sonic the Hedgehog impression. I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. I'm not gonna do that. That's stupid. That would be funny, though. It's about time for Angel to get out of school, Danny thought. It's not like he forgot about his younger brother getting out of school soon, but he had just put that thought in the back of his mind. Maybe I should go walk him back home. It'd be great to just talk. And to get more documentation. Admittedly, it was mainly for documentation, but Danny also wanted to make sure his brother was safe. If anything happened to Adriel that Danny could have prevented, he has a feeling no one would ever see him alive again. That line is kind of just, I kind of just wrote that in to be a little cryptic of, like, how much, like, Danny is protective over Adriel. And also the fact of how James had died. And I don't know if I go over how James died in this book. That might be this book or next book. It might be next book, because, he died on Halloween. Next book takes place during Halloween. So, you don't get to know how he dies at all. Actually, you don't get to know how he dies until I come around to writing the second book, which is probably going to be 2 years from now. So sad. so sad. I could die. I could die before I get the second book written, and you would not know what I have planned. Isn't that crazy? This this whole story totally is an event post or anything. Anyways. Danny got up off the couch and walked over to the front door, walking down the long entrance hall. On the entrance table sat a small metal basket filled with random notes and the house keys, and a small notebook and camcorder were right next to it. Okay, I do want to say, this takes place in the 2020s. I don't really know what year of the 2020s. I kind of just like set it for like 23, 24 after COVID, like post COVID. So like completely brain rotted and stuff. It's kind of just like in those years. But he has no better camera than a camcorder because he is a loser boy who lives in the attic with no real way to get money. No money. He's completely maidenless. He has no money, no maidens. And he's using crappy cameras from the 90s. He is boy loser. He is boy loser. My favorite boy loser. It's okay though. I still care about him. Danny reached his clawed hand for his camcorder before hesitating. He decided on grabbing the snow grave? He decided on grabbing the small notebook instead. He grabbed the keys and walked out the front door, ducking as to not hit his head. Oh, have I mentioned this? Yeah, have I mentioned this? Danny is 7'8". He's 7'8". 7'8". That's how tall he is. Okay, hold on. I have to get something to I have their heights mapped out so far. I have their heights mapped out. Let me just send it real quick. Did I say 7'8"? Wait. I don't. No, I think he's 7'5", actually. I think he's 7'5". I keep messing it up. I keep mixing up 5 and 8 for some reason. I don't know why. That just keeps happening. So, I have a little height chart for myself that I made. Not all the characters are on there because I'm using the turnaround sheets. So, not all the characters are on there. But I do have Danny and James set up with Danny having a full turnaround sheet. James, his turnaround sheet is almost ready. And I have a little height chart here. Okay, so Adriel is 5 foot. James is 5'2". Danny is 7'5". So I'm going to show this a little. I'm just going to show you the height difference between these two. The height difference between these two. James is 2 years older than Danny, okay? And I'm not counting his horns. I am not counting his horns. His horns don't count for height. Without his horns, he's just bald. He's bald. No, he has fur. But also, take away his horns and he looks bald. I just... The height difference. I just want to show that. He is freakishly tall. Like Shaq height. Where was I? Okay, I found it. He made sure to lock it back before leaving. It wasn't like anyone in town was stupid enough to break in broad daylight, but you never know with some people. My paranoid boy. Very paranoid. Honestly, though, the same. Danny walked down the street, avoiding eye contact with anyone he passed by. It wasn't hard since he had almost a good 3 feet on any. Where did anyone come from? Anyone's not even in the sentence. It wasn't hard since he had almost a good 3 feet on the average person. No one tried looking at him either, something Danny was very thankful for. He listened for anything as he walked, just curious to see if anyone was out at the place. The birds singing, people talking, a few cars driving on the road. Everything was normal. When he was about to cross the street to the school, he suddenly stopped. Then he felt a shiver of unease, suddenly feeling nauseous. A feeling he was used to. Slowly, Danny looked to the end of the road. He saw a man walking aimlessly around, drenched in blood. His arms were bent in wrong directions, and even though his face was obscured, Danny could see the wide-open jaw dangling. A car slowly drove by, driving right through the man as he walked across the road. Danny quickly looked away and wrote down in his notebook. Unknown ghost sighting at 2:50. Don't know who this is. Looks roughed up. Maybe car accident? I'll ask around Sunday. Danny shut the notebook and started walking again. When he reached the school, he leaned against the wall and waited for Adriel to walk out. He watched as kids passed by him, most of them staring up with curious glances, before noticing Adriel walk down the stairs of the building. His brother was easy to spot in a crowd, given his more unusual looks. Okay, I also gotta show my other boy now. My youngest of the trio. My other boy. I love them all the same, even though James is clearly my favorite. My favorite son. Okay, here we go. The third Snake Hill boy. You know, I've actually been thinking of, like, what type of music Adriel would listen to. Probably, like, the loudest music known to man. Like, the type that, like, is just, like, breakcore. He listens to breakcore. He listens to breakcore albums all the time. Or was I... He was technically considered a mutant, but Danny hated calling him that. It didn't matter that much if he had some features that looked... Okay, I feel weird about writing this part, because I feel so weird about, like, writing this part, because I don't know how to describe people at all. Like, I usually just write stuff like, oh, and then a guy walked by. It was a guy. Yep. Just a guy. White man jump scare, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how to describe people at all. So, I feel a bit awkward about writing this. I don't know why, because I am someone who has written fan fiction. I've written some stuff far more embarrassing than an OC passion project. I have a catalog of the most embarrassing things I've ever written, lodged into my memory and published for the world to see. And I'm embarrassed by, like, how I describe people. There is just, like, something up. I don't know what it is. Maybe autism. Of course it's autism. I got the golden ADHD. This whole town was strange anyways. Danny watched as a group of 5 other boys suddenly ran out. One of the boys made a mocking gesture to Adriel and shoved him off the stairs. Danny flattened his ears. He wasn't in the mood to let some 12-year-olds bully his brother. He quickly walked over to Adriel, standing in the way between him and these boys. He smiled and tapped Adriel on the shoulder. Ah! He would, probably say something else, though. He would probably say something else. I don't know how to, like... Because, like... Do I just scream into the microphone? Am I allowed to scream into the microphone? I feel so embarrassed about this, but whatever. Adriel yelped and turned around, staring up at his brother. Don't scare me like that, Danny, Adriel yelled and shoved Danny away. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you, he muttered. Adriel huffed and walked over the bike rack to unlock his bike. Danny looked behind him and saw the boy standing on the stairs and staring up at him with wide eyes. Danny flashed his sharp teeth, making the boys panic and suddenly scram. Okay, I also want to say again, Danny from the side looks like a leopard seal. From his side profile, he looks a little bit like a leopard seal. His side profile looks a little bit like a leopard seal. He looks like this. Okay, he looks like this. All you gotta do is just, like, from Danny's side profile, he looks exactly like this. I find it extremely funny that I've designed him that way, but also, he does not act like a leopard seal at all. He is a boy loser so much, and he sleeps in the attic. He cannot attack anyone at all. He's too scared. He'd freeze up like a deer. Danny rolled his eyes and started walking away. He hoped those idiots wouldn't go crying to their mothers. Adriel hopped on his bike and started following Danny closely behind. Why are you here? Adriel asked. Danny smiled. What? Can't I take a walk with my little brother? He asked. Adriel frowned at him. We live 3 blocks away, Danny. I can get home by myself. I'm 15. Danny looked away and said, I know. I just wanted to walk out here with someone. I mean, it looked like a nice day, so I thought, you just want to make sure I get home safe, even though it's literally only 5 minutes away. You don't need to babysit me all the time, Adriel said. Danny looked back at him and saw frustration on his face. He knew he was probably worrying over nothing, but he didn't want Adriel to keep coming home bruised and not say anything about it. Adriel looked... No, wrong character. Danny looked away again and focused on the sidewalk ahead. It's 20 minutes, actually. He muttered. It's 20 minutes. Actually, it's 20 minutes. Angel groaned and tried shoving Danny away, only to almost fall off his bike. Danny laughed. Shouldn't try doing that, eh? You're gonna get yourself... I realize now, saying this out loud, it sounds like a Canadian accent. Oh, don't you know, eh? Like, it sounds like that. I'm so sorry. Shouldn't try doing that, eh? You're gonna hurt yourself. You're going to hurt yourself, he said. Angel stuck out his tongue and grinned before hurrying ahead. Danny slowly followed after him. As they make their way home, Danny notices someone walking towards them. The older woman was wearing some... I'm tripping over my words somehow. I don't know how I'm tripping over my words, though. The older woman was wearing a yellow cardigan and had her faded blonde hair tied in a bun. She smiles and slightly bows. May velvet bless your dreams, she said as she passed. They're screaming outside my room, dude. I need soundproof walls. Can y'all hear this? I hope you can't hear that. I hope you can't hear that. I really hope you can't hear that. There's a lawnmower outside and someone's screaming outside my room. I got no space. Danny nodded back. Thank you, he said quietly. Danny quickly glanced away. Why didn't she say roses bless you? Adriel asked. Danny sighed. I know you're learning this, eh? Cloud creates and makes dreams, rose takes and protects life, Danny said. Do you remember what tide does? He asked his brother. Adriel paused for a moment. I think Waters gives wisdom, and he trailed off. She also warns and prepares people for things to come. Danny finished for him. Right, yeah, I knew that, Adriel said and grinned. Danny smiled. She said Velvet because of her powers over dreams. When Velvet blesses you, it's like a promise of a good future. You need to pay more attention in church, he mumbled. Speaking of, Denny stared at the church as they approached. It was a simple white building, pointed at the top. It was almost the biggest building in town, apart from the school and the town hall. Danny looked over at the graveyard that nearly surrounded the church. There wasn't anyone around. Danny smiled and walked over to the gate. He stared at the graveyard for a few moments. It's almost that day again. Danny looked over at Adriel. You need to remind Dad to get some flowers later, he said. Adriel tilted his head. I thought Dad already got her flowers, he said. Danny sighed. He might have. I just want to check. Come on, let's go. You know, I've noticed in a lot of my writing, I write that character sighs a lot. Like, characters I write, especially Danny, I have so many instances of him sighing. Hold on. How many instances do I have of him sighing? $14. And 14 4 that's oh no, I can't do math. Oh, what is that? What is that? What is that? Oh no, I can't do math. Wait. Hold on. Okay, so that's 18, right? I think my brain died when I got out into the heat wave. Alright, let's continue by terrible math problems. It's crazy I wrote sighed over 18 times in only the first arc. In only the first act. That's gonna get worse. That's gonna get worse, honestly. That's gonna get worse. Okay. They kept walking until they reached the house. Danny took out the key and opened the front door. Adriel set his bike down, then ran inside. Danny sighed. Again, I just write that a lot. It is my favorite thing to write. When I don't know what a character should do, sigh. Or just write gasp, I don't know. Danny sighed and walked over to the garage, putting Adriel's bike up. He then walked through the front door and locked it behind him. He walked over to the dining table and sat down, watching as Adriel ran into the living room to boot up his console. Danny watched him for a moment before looking away. He took out his notebook and wrote, There wasn't anyone at the graveyard. I know someone was supposed to take over as groundskeeper today. What? No, that's not what it says! I know someone was supposed to take over as groundskeeper during the weekdays. I don't know where he was, but I'm sure I couldn't see him. But I'm sure I just couldn't see him. I'm just being paranoid, but it doesn't hurt writing everything down. Danny put his pen down and listened to Adriel playing his video game. He suddenly heard a creak from upstairs and looked up. Danny smiled and leaned back in his chair, knowing exactly who it was. Alright, that's chapter 1 down, and already my throat hurts. And oh my gosh, I've been recording for 41 minutes. And that's only the first two. Oh no! Oh, I'm gonna take a break and come back and hopefully stop yapping. Oh. Oh, that's crazy. Actually, the fact I can talk for almost an hour without talking about anything I was supposed to talk about. That's crazy, but let's continue, I guess. Chapter 2. Anxious. Oh, you're back. That sounded a little like Sonic. You know what? I'm keeping that in. That sounded like Sonic. He sounds like Sonic the Hedgehog, though. Danny said. A second later, a ghostly figure appeared in front of Danny, floating upside down. He was wearing a plague doctor costume, his mask down to reveal his cold, dead green eyes. For as long as Danny could remember, him and James had always been friends, and later brothers. It's a typo! I just realized I have a typo. For as long as Danny could remember, him and James had always been friends, and later brothers by adoption. Despite having not previously lived in Snake Hill before, Danny and James were pretty quickly close and tried doing anything they could together. The screaming outside my room is continuing, unfortunately. Up until 13 years ago, they were a happy family. Did you find something? Danny asked. His older brother smiled. You bet, hang on. He disappeared a second later. Danny turned to face the staircase as James walked down the stairs, holding an old damaged book. Take a look at what I found, he said, and slammed the book down on the table, making dust fly everywhere. Danny coughed and glared at James. You know how cool of a find this is? This is an old medical book from, I think the early 1900s, he said excitedly. Yeah, sounds like a good read, Danny said. James smiled and nodded. Where'd you get it? Danny asked. James slowly looked away. Well, I may have gone into the forbidden section of the library, James muttered. Danny's ears perked up. Why? He asked. Well, all the fun finds are down there. And it's not like anyone can stop me anyways, James said. Danny rolled his eyes. Not really surprised you'd do that, he said. James grinned brightly. Hey, you're the one who's never told on me before. You know I've done way worse. Danny decided to steer the conversation back to its original point. There's more screaming outside. What's with that? Actually, so why do you think that book was in there? Danny asked. James shrugged. Don't know. Maybe it's haunted, he joked. Danny laughed. I doubt it. Only because you're scared it might actually be cursed, James said quickly. Danny smiled and grabbed the book. Who would put a curse on an old medical book? He asked. Danny opened the book and looked through it. It just sounds stupid, you know? Why do you even like this stuff? It's so boring. Just look at it, Danny mumbled. James yanked the book back and glared at his brother. Maybe to you, but I find it fascinating to look how people in the past understood medicine. It's strange to think about. It's like taking a look into the past minds of people before us, he said. Danny rolled his eyes. I don't really like listening to the rambles of crazy people who thought torturing people was a cure to mental illness. James nodded slowly. Yeah, but I just really want to know why they thought that. Why did they think everything they did was okay? I just need to know, he interjected. Danny laughed and said, You sound like Dad. James smiled and looked up at Danny. You think so? He asked. He paused for a moment, staring down at the floor. I think I would have liked being a psychiatrist like him, he said. Danny felt his heart sink and looked away. He hated when someone brought up the reality that James was dead. It made him feel sick and brought back all those feelings from that night. He couldn't handle it. He hated when people talked like someone was gone, but they were right there in front of them. No one else could see, no one else could know. It's an awful curse to have. I don't know if my voice is giving out. I don't know. I'm drinking some beer instead. I'm just drinking some beer. Some beer of root. Now, one tail of newt. Put it in the cauldron. Oh. James smiled at Danny before taking the book and walking away, taking a seat beside Adriel. Oh, actually, I don't think I ever, wrote this in at all. But, Danny... Not Danny. No, not Danny. James is a ghost that can, just, easily interact with objects that not many other ghosts can do. So sometimes, Adriel, for example, he cannot see ghosts. Danny can't see ghosts. But Adriel, in this instance, would just look over and just, see, random objects where they definitely should not be. And, that's kind of, his hint that his brother is there. And he does very, very obviously believe in ghosts. Adriel believes everything Danny says about ghosts. Because, he can use some clues to just find out what's going on without having him actually see ghosts. Their father does not actually believe anything Danny says. At all. Maybe that's some issues. He got a skill issue or something, I don't know. Danny turned and stared out the window near the back door. He listened to Adriel play his game for a moment. He needed something else to focus on. Then he noticed something moving outside. Danny got up and walked to the window. He saw a cat jumping from the porch, walking out to the chain fence that surrounded Snake Hill. Danny's eyes widened and walked to the back door. He opened it and walked to the porch, taking a look around. Danny slowly walked to the fence and crouched down. "Oh, there you are," he said and looked down at the cat. "Why are you out here, Turbo?" Danny asked as he picked up the tortoiseshell. Turbo mewed and rubbed her face against Danny's. Danny laughed and scratched Turbo's chin. "Come on, girl. Let's get you back inside," he mumbled and started walking back to the house. I think my voice is gone. I think I need to just talk normally instead of having a scratchy voice. Having a scratchy librarian voice. A sudden snap stopped him. Danny felt his blood run cold, and he felt his breathing quicken. He turned around and pinned his ears back, looking into the woods. There wasn't anything there. It was still the quiet forest, filled with tall pine trees. Danny sighed. "I'm just being paranoid," he muttered and shook his head. Danny walked back to the house and entered, not looking back at the woods. He walked over to the couch. "Hey, look who I found! It's Turbo!" Danny said and held Turbo out. Adriel stared at him and smiled. Then James grinned and reached over to pet Turbo. "Oh, hey, girl! I thought she ran off into the woods." "I'm sure she did, but she came back, and I found her again," Danny said. Adriel nodded. "She ran off into the woods?" he asked. Danny nodded, almost forgetting Adriel couldn't hear what James said. Adriel hesitantly reached out his hand where he thought Turbo was and tried petting her. Turbo lifted her head into Adriel's hand, purring loudly. Danny glanced away. Adriel smiled. It's nice to know she still likes us," he said. "Of course she still does," Danny started. "She never really left us." Adriel nodded slowly. "Yeah," he said. The room got quiet pretty quickly. Danny looked away and set Turbo down, wanting to slip away from the awkward air. "If you need anything, I'll be up in my room," he said and walked off towards the stairs. He listened to the quiet house again as he walked down the He listened to the quiet house again as he walked down the hall. When Danny reached the end of the hall... Wait, okay, I don't think I really mentioned this or made this clear. It's 2 stories. 2 stories. He goes up the stairs, there's a long hall that has everyone's bedrooms in it, and at the end of the hall is the attic. I have it drawn. I have the layout of the house drawn somewhere. I don't know where it is, though. But I don't think that's very clear. I just want to make it clear. The hall, the very long hall, is the second story. The layout and the first story, kind of just fine. And then we have the attic above the second story. Just want to make that clear. When Danny reached the end of the hall, he reached up and grabbed the handle for the attic door. He twisted it and stepped back, letting the steps fall on the floor. After a heartbeat, Danny stepped up, walking up to the attic. I think I'm ruining my voice. I don't know why, but my voice sometimes just sounds scratchy. It just comes out as, like, scratchy or something. I think there might be genuinely something wrong with me, or whatever. I don't know. Oh gosh, it's been an hour and we've only made it through 3 chapters. Oh no! Chapter 3. Ghost Sight. Danny slowly opened his eyes, trying to block out the sunlight of dawn as he did. He groggily sat up and glared at the window. He reached over to shut the curtains, returning the room to yeah, those aren't words. He reached over and shut the curtains, returning the room back to darkness. Danny wanted nothing more than to go back to sleep, but it would just take too long to get comfortable again. Danny sighed and got out of his makeshift bed. Now that the room was shielded from the blinding light, he could actually make things out. Okay, so Danny's bed. What I want to say, you know those curved windows? Hold on. Those curved windows with the little mats inside, the cushions inside. I don't know if this is an AI image. I genuinely cannot tell. This thing, whatever this thing is. This thing. Except it's one window, and it's fully covered up. And the semicircle is fully made of cushions. It's this thing, but it's fully made of curtains. This thing looks a little closer, but it's a semicircle. You know? Hold on. Yeah, here we go. Something like this. Like a little bed. He made that space into a bed where he sleeps on. That is what it is. And that's why it's a makeshift bed. Because it's not supposed to be a bed, but he uses it as a bed. Just so he can sleep by the window. The little freak. Honestly, though, it sounds terrifying, but also nice to just sleep by the window because it's the 3rd story. It's not like you're gonna just look out the window and see someone just staring in. Not like at the 1st story. If someone was staring in the window through this 3rd story window, that's one freakishly tall guy. Or he's just floating. Now that the room was shielded from the blinding light, he could actually make things out. The attic was nearly clean, the only dusty things being unopened cardboard boxes sitting in the corner. The wall beside Danny had his corkboard hanging up, filled with various photos from over the years. Danny walked over to his desk, reaching for his journal. He grabbed a pen and turned to the first uncharted page. Dreamless night again. Don't know if this is a good thing. I'll ask someone about it when I can. Danny closed his journal and leaned back. He stretched, trying to wake his stiff body. He walked over to the stairs and kicked down. Danny waited for the stairs to stop moving before he started walking down, making sure to duck low enough to not hit his head. Oh no, I'm out of root beer! Root beer, no! Root beer! Root beer, no! Root beer! Oh, I don't want to get up again. I don't want to get up again. I'll wait. Danny slowly walked down the hall, not wanting to wake his family this early. As he crept slowly down the stairs, he thought he heard something. Tapping. On a window? What's Turbo doing down there? Danny wondered. He reached the bottom of the stairs and looked around. The house was barely lit, making it seem peaceful in the morning light. Danny walked over to the kitchen, wanting to get the cereal first before his brothers could empty it. Danny opened a cupboard and started searching for the rectangular box. It doesn't say started, but I've said that sentence like 5 times already. We're gonna move on and not mention it. You're up early. Danny nearly jumped out of his skin as he yelled. He spun around, facing his father. The man was already dressed for work, the only missing thing being his doctor coat. His reddish-brown hair was slicked back, and the only sign of his exhaustion was his tired green eyes. Danny sighed in relief. "Dad, you scared me," he said. Dr. Scott rubbed the bridge of his nose. "I'm sorry. I thought you heard me," he mumbled. Danny leaned his head back as he tried to calm his racing heart. "Where'd you come from?" he asked. Dr. Scott looked up at him. "The garage. I forgot something in the car last night," he said, and walked past Danny Yeah. Whoa, Saturdays. Am I right, or am I right? He said and walked past Danny to the coffee brewer. "What was it?" Danny asked. Fun fact about the original Snake Hill. I wanted to make Dr. Scott evil. He is no longer evil. He is no longer evil. But I don't know why. The first version, back when it was Project Restart, I wanted to make him very morally gray and kind of messed up because he's a doctor guy. He's no longer morally gray and messed up. He's fine for the most part. Just very distant and depressed. "Oh, it was just my phone," Dr. Scott said quietly. Danny nodded and turned back to grab the cereal box. It felt so awkward to stand in silence. He felt like he should try talking, since this was about the only time his dad had to talk with him. "How's work?" Danny asked. "You know how it is sometimes," Dr. Scott started. "Yesterday we had to send a patient off to the mental ward after they bit someone's ear off." Fun fact, in Florida there's multiple cases of guys biting their ears off. Floridians are, just bite each other's faces off all the time. This isn't in Florida, though. This is not Florida. So, this is not Florida. This is the Appalachian Mountains. Not the mountains, but yeah. "Oh," Danny muttered and glanced away. "That sounds eventful," he tried. His father simply nodded as he grabbed his cup of coffee. "So then, how's your work?" he asked. Danny flicked his ear. "Oh, well, I wouldn't know. I don't work on weekdays," he mumbled. Dr. Scott looked up at Danny and muttered something under his breath. He rubbed his eyes again and shook his head. "I'm sorry, Dan. I'm just out of it this morning." "Oh, it's fine. I get it," Danny said. The silence returned, making Danny feel uneasy again. "Well, I have to get going now," Dr. Scott said and walked away. Danny waited for a second as he watched his father leave the room. "I love you, Dad," he called out. Dr. Scott stopped and turned, smiling softly at Danny. "I love you too, son," he said and continued walking. Danny fiddled with the bowl for a moment until he heard the front door shut. He let out a long sigh and rested his head against the cupboards. His relationship with his father had always been somewhat strained. He knew his father loved him and cared deeply, but there was always a barrier between the two. Dr. Scott had never been superstitious, even after moving in here with Danny's mother. He had never believed Danny of ghosts because of it. And he didn't blame him, really, because from what he's seen, He's the only one who can see ghosts. It was nice when someone did believe him, though, instead of thinking he's crazy. His mother had always believed him. Danny gritted his teeth. He prayed so often for things to be different. If his mother hadn't gotten sick, if James had been here with him that night, so many things would be different. Why had the sisters deemed it right to take away people who cared for him in the blink of an eye? It wasn't fair. Having a mental breakdown in like 4 a.m. Just an average Saturday. Just an average Saturday, man. Yeah, just your average Saturday, having a mental breakdown at 4 a.m. 6 a.m, I don't know. Danny leaned back as he felt warm tears fall down his face. He wiped his eyes, feeling stupid for crying at 6 a.m. Everything was in the past, and the sisters would never let him change that. Danny sniffed and walked away. Even the thought of eating right now made him feel sick. Way to ruin that, Dan. Just crying about everything because you can't keep your stupid thoughts in check. He started muttering to himself as he walked towards the stairs. Danny? Danny jumped and stared at the top of the stairs. Edward was standing there, still dressed in his PJs and giving Danny a confused look. Oh. Good morning, eh? Danny said awkwardly. Were you crying? Adriel asked. Danny chuckled nervously. Nope, eyes just hurt. I think I got something in them, he said and turned away. He walked over to the couch and sat down. He listened as Adriel slowly made his way downstairs. Okay then, Adriel mumbled and walked to the kitchen. Danny looked around for the TV remote. He shoved his hand under the curtains? Curtains! He shoved his hand under the cushions and pulled it out. Danny turned to the TV, hoping to find something to pass the time. As he turned it on and started searching for something, he saw Adriel walk up to him in the corner of his eye. Is this your bowl? He asked. Danny turned to him, noticing the empty bowl he left was now filled with cereal. Danny glanced away. Yes, he said. Adriel didn't say anything else. He just set the bowl beside Danny and left. Danny stared down at the floor for a moment. He didn't need his brother worrying over him. He decided to just eat, not make Adriel any more worried. Danny grabbed the bowl and sat back, starting up a show to watch. A brief moment later, Adriel walked back into the room, holding the little pastry things you put in a toaster, whatever they're called. They totally don't have a name. For any obvious reasons, no. Oh, my voice hurts. I've been doing this for an hour. Adriel walked back into the room, holding a toaster pastry, and took a seat beside Danny. Hey, Danny? Adriel asked. Danny looked over to his brother. Do you think you could drop me off at my friend's house? Yeah, sure, Danny answered. He was a bit surprised Adriel would ask him to walk with him, but he didn't mind at all. Adriel smiled. Thanks, Danny, he said. Danny smiled back. No problem, eh? I can't get over the fact that, like, saying this out loud, it sounds like I'm trying to do a very terrible Canadian accent, or a Minnesota accent. Sounds like I'm doing a bad Minnesota. That's what it sounds like. And I didn't realize that until I'm reading it out loud right now. He said while reaching over to ruffle Adriel's hair. Hey! Adriel shouted and batted Danny away. Danny laughed and leaned back. I don't know if I had that part written well. But, you know what? Oh well, it's fine. It's fine. I'm so sick of rewriting every single chapter in this book. This has been project for like half a decade by now. Because I keep rewriting everything. The sun had risen more over the past few hours. Danny stared up at the sky before looking down. He walked along the sidewalk, Adriel walking beside him as he balanced on the sidewalk. So what are you and Freya gonna be doing? Danny asked. Adriel didn't look up at him when he answered. We'll just be playing some video games. She called me earlier and said she bought a co-op game. She called me earlier and said she bought a co-op one and wanted me to come over and just hang out. Danny nodded. He wanted to ask more, but it wasn't his place to ask. As long as Adriel wasn't trying to sneak off into the woods, he didn't care. He didn't care what he did with his friends. How long are you going to be there? Danny asked. Adriel looked up. I'm not sure. Maybe 2 hours? Danny nodded at that. As long as you're back before dark, he said. Adriel sighed and smirked. You sound like Dad. Danny flicked his ear at the comment. I just want to make sure you're safe, he argued. I know. That's what everyone always says. Come back before dark. Don't go into the woods. Always listen to the priest. Always so many rules. Danny stopped talking. He would quickly agree that some of the rules here were stupid, but not out in the open. Not with so many eyes on him. Danny stopped when they reached a house. It looked almost exactly the same as every other house in town. Completely boring. Completely boring. You don't get any more information other than it's boring and I don't want to write about it because I don't care about it. I only write about things I care about and things you should know. Do I write about every single person in the crowd? No. They're unimportant. You don't get details other than they're unimportant. Unimportant details don't matter. What color is it? I don't know. Brick color. Cement. I don't know. Ow! Angel ran up to the door and knocked. A moment later, it opened. A young girl with darker skin walked out, her dark hair braided only on the sides. She smiled as she saw Adriel. There you are! What took you so long? Freya asked. I had to get ready. You called me at 6. I was half asleep, Adriel said. Curseforge, not now. Not now. I don't want to play Minecraft. I'm reading the story. Not now, Minecraft. I'm reading a story. Minecraft notification. What? Freya grinned. Because I wanted you here earlier, she said. She looked over at Danny and waved. I promise I won't keep Adriel for too long, she joked before rushing Adriel inside her house. Danny smiled and walked away. Now that he was by himself, he didn't really know what to do. He didn't want to go back to the house and just bed rot all day. Was that a term in the year this takes place? I don't know. I don't know. That's a term because I'm the writer and I say so. Oh my gosh, another typo. Another typo. This is why you have an editorial team. This is why you have an editorial team. Then he remembered he had a job to do. Right. I'll check in later, Danny mumbled. Hopefully the priest won't be upset. Ah! I think my voice is broken. My voice is fading away slowly. My face. Ah. I need more broke bear. For now, he wanted to wind down at the park. Danny turned the corner as he walked, nearly jumping when someone walked in front of him. The woman was wearing a pale blue Victorian dress. She held a decorative umbrella above her face, hiding it from view. As she walked by, she spoke in a soft voice. Good day, is it not, Mr. Scott? Danny smiled and nodded politely. It is, Miss Blue, he said, and watched her pass by. Danny could still remember his first encounter with the ghost, back when he didn't know he could see ghosts. If it wasn't for her crooked neck, he would have never had guessed she was a ghost. Danny continued his way to the park, passing by more people, all living. They paid no mind to Danny as he walked. When he reached the park, Danny let another sigh. Danny let out a soft sigh. Another sigh. My boy, he just sighs a lot. You sound sarcastic. Stop doing that. He's not going to stop doing that, and you can't make me stop him. He passed by the brick entrance, taking a look at the scenery. The trees here were much shorter than the pines out in the woods. That doesn't say woods, that says forest. Oh my gosh! Their leaves had changed from a dark, lush luscious green to a pale golden yellow. The sun cast its light down through the branches, making the park almost glow. Despite the trees being so close to each other, it didn't feel suffocating. It was peaceful. Danny walked over to a bench, taking a seat and continuing to stare at the sky. He smiled and let his eyes close. Yay, another chapter done! Yippee! Wahoo! Wow! I don't know what I'm doing. I honestly don't know what I'm doing. It's whatever, though. It's whatever. Oh, an hour and 20 minutes, and I'm not even done. We have 4 more chapters to read. And so... Chapter 4. Investigators. Danny listened to the soft wind as it started whistling. It was peaceful at first, blending into the scenery. The wind didn't stop as it slowly got stronger and colder. Danny opened his eyes and looked around. Something felt wrong with the shift in the air. Danny stared off into the distance. He could feel eyes watching him. James, are you trying to scare me? Danny asked. James appeared in front of Danny, now no longer invisible. How'd you know? He asked. Danny grinned. It was obvious, man. Besides, you're always trying to scare me. James smiled and sat beside Danny. I am not, he argued. You so were, Danny said. James rolled his eyes and shoved Danny lightly. Danny felt his spine crawl as he felt the sudden touch of death. James leaned back on the bench. Found anything cool yet? He asked. Huh? Danny looked back at him. You know, stuff like weird little trinkets and things, Danny murmured. I don't know, you're just good at finding stuff. I wanted to know if you found anything cool. Oh, Danny said, understanding what his brother meant now. Nope, I just got here, but I'm sure you can find something to keep you busy. James looked away and stared around. It's nice out here, he said. Danny nodded. It is. You know, sitting here and staring at all these colors reminds me of the season, James muttered. Just a few weeks until it's October again. Danny flattened his ears. Don't remind me. I don't think I said that too harshly. Wait. Can't believe it's already 2 in the afternoon. 14 in the afternoon if you're European. Unlike me, I'm not European. Unfortunately. If I was, I could probably speak le français with baguettes. Oui. Something, I don't know. Danny flattened his ears. Don't remind me, he said harshly, then stopped, regretting his tone. I'm sorry. I just don't want to think about that, James, he said. James stared at Danny for a moment, then smiled brightly. Yeah, sure. Let's just keep talking about other things then, he said. Have you heard anything interesting from the town hall? Danny looked at his brother. No. I'm guessing you have. James nodded and started shaking his hands excitedly as he started speaking. Did I say that in a harsh tone? I don't know if I did. My voice just hurts. I can't speak in a normal tone. My voice hurts. Yes. Okay, so I was just walking around. Not snooping or anything, okay? But I was near the town hall and overheard some people talking about how the nearest town to us just had someone move in, and in the same week, a really annoying guy went missing. Then the person that moved in there left only 2 weeks later. Weird, right? James asked. Danny nodded slowly. He didn't really care about boring town gossip, but he'll let his brother speak about anything he liked. Oh! I also heard talk about people seeing something really big walk around in the woods. They kept saying something about strange noises, too. Danny felt more interested by that. Really? Are they sure it isn't a moose? He asked. James stared at him for a moment. Have you ever seen a moose in West Virginia? He asked. No, but it could have been one. Or a really big deer, Danny pointed out. For someone who loves cryptids, you always love dismissing everything I say, James muttered. Danny twitched his ear and frowned. You know that's not true. I'm not even dismissing you. I'm dismissing other people, he said. James rolled his eyes and grinned. You just like being mean, he said teasingly. Danny stuck out his tongue before turning away to stare back out to the park. James sighed and laid... I can't speak. James sighed and laid back on the bench, moving his hat onto his face to block out the sun. Danny that's not stand. I'm going to take another sip. Another sip of my beer. My root beer. Oh. I cannot give any more commentary to this. This is over an hour long. It's supposed to be 41 minutes, and I'm not even done with the entire act. Danny stared at the ground for a few moments. He sat in the peaceful silence until it was broken by the sound of footsteps. They were distant, but close enough to bother the tranquility. Danny glanced up to see who else had entered the park. 2 guys walked on the pathway across from Danny. One of them was a blonde and had 2 black backpacks and a large camera with him. I'm sorry, I'm not rereading that. I'm tired. It's 2 in the afternoon, or 14 in the afternoon, and my throat hurts because I've been yapping for over an hour, and I still got a bunch of projects to finish up. So, the other had long dark hair and was talking while making these large gestures. What in the world? Danny muttered. James moved his hat down to stare. Oh, brother. Ghost hunters? And he groaned, realizing he was right. I guess it really is that time of year, he said with a sigh. Of course we get more of these guys. James sat up. I bet you I could go scare them, he said. Danny turned to James. Don't do that. They don't need any more attention. James rolled his eyes. It'll give me something to do. You can scare anyone else, Danny said. James shook his head. No, people here always expect weird things to happen. But they won't expect it. If they do, they'll start screaming and it'll be funny. No, it won't. Don't do that, Danny said. James sat back and crossed his arms. Fine, I won't, he said. Danny sighed. I swear, sometimes it feels like I'm the older brother. James snickered. That's because you're way too cautious, he said. Danny smiled. And I have a good reason for that. James looked away. Yeah, you're right. It's just... He stopped suddenly. Danny. They're looking. Danny snapped his head up to see that one of the two guys had stopped. He stared at Danny, holding the camera at him. Danny jumped up and quickly started walking away. He could feel his skin prick with unease. Just the thought of someone watching him was horrible, but actually seeing someone recording him, it was such a deep fear. Maybe it was something with how the man was starting. Take another sip of beer. Take a swig every time I mess up my words. You'll be drunk by the end. Maybe it was something with how the man was staring that set him off. Danny quickly walked out of the park, not bothering to look behind him. "Hey," James said, and as he appeared beside Danny. "That was a little freaky. He was just standing there and recording us." "Those investigators have no manners," he muttered. Danny nodded while grabbing his arm. "Freaky things. Yeah, let's just go home," he said quietly. James looked up at Danny. "Are you okay, Dan?" he asked. Danny nodded again. "Fine, just bothered me." James looked down. "All right, let's just go home then, and hopefully we don't get followed," he said. Danny glanced at him. "Why would you say that?" he asked. James laughed apologetically. "Sorry, it was the first thing to come to mind." 3 more chapters. I'm on my 3rd cup of root beer. Oh, it's okay. We're good. No spills. Can I make it through 3 more chapters? Maybe. Chapter 5. Sixth Sense. Danny stared at the bright painted window. The colors shined down onto the marble floor from the afternoon sunlight. The painted glass depicted the 3 sisters, showing them looking down at the earth. Below it was the altar that stood higher than the floor. The only other light came from the lit candles around the inside of the church. It was a huge place, made almost entirely out of cold stone. Danny tore his eyes away from the glass mural. He didn't have time to get distracted. He walked between the rows of seats, his hoofs clicking against the marble. He walked over to the altar. The old wood was worn down and crooked, slightly giving way on the one side. Danny crouched down and grabbed it, trying to put the supports back up against it. He had asked why it hasn't been replaced yet, but since it wasn't fully broken, no one seemed to care. Danny stood back up and glanced around. The old building needed only a little fixing after the morning sermon, but it still needed to be done. What the heck was that? They're playing noises upstairs. I can hear them. Danny walked around the empty, calm building. Anything out of place was quickly set back up or put away. The candles were replaced with new ones, taking away what little light was inside. Books were put up and the floor was swept. It was an almost daily routine for Danny. Ever since he was little, he'd always been helping out at the church. It was always just calming for him. It made him feel a little closer with his faith. The large wooden doors creaked open. Danny looked over at them, expecting to see one of the priests walk in. To his dismay, it was not a priest, nor any townsfolk. The 2 men walked inside the church. One of them was holding up the same large camera. Danny flattened his ears as he watched the 2 walk in. Of course, these idiots are here now. Just my luck, he thought. "Hey, you can't film in here." The 2 instantly looked up at Danny. "Whoa, hey," one of them started. "You're that guy. Shut it, let's just go," the guy holding the camera said. The guys looked at each other for a moment. Danny shifted on his hoofs uncomfortably. He didn't want to deal with these guys right now. One of the guys looked back up at Danny and started walking over to him. So, I heard around that you're the town's very own freak, huh? He asked. Kai, let's go. No, hold on. Let me just ask him a few questions. Kai, he said we can't film in here, so let's just go. Danny slowly backed away. He turned and started walking to the back of the building. Hey, wait, man, the guy said and caught up to Danny. Are the rumors really true? Can you see ghosts? He asked, and got in front of Danny. Is it because you look like that? Danny looked away. He didn't want to answer anything this guy asked him. The other guy walked up and pulled on his friend's arm. Just shut up. Let's go, he muttered. Oh, come on. You're the one who wanted to come into this dump of a town, and now you're complaining about me? We don't have time for this. Come on, the guy said and shoved his friend away. He looked up at Danny with an apologetic look. I'm so sorry about him, he said and walked after his friend as he continued pushing him to the door. Danny blinked as he watched them leave. He let out a long sigh as he looked away. This is going to be a long wink, isn't it? He asked himself. Danny looked back up towards the ceiling of the church. Oh, roses give me strength, he muttered. He looked back down and looked around. There wasn't anything else to do now. I'll wait a bit before leaving, Danny decided. He slowly started to walk to the front of the building again. He took a seat on one of the many benches and sat in silence. He looked back up at the ceiling and stared at it for a moment. It was calming again. Danny breathed out and leaned forward. For a moment, the church felt so still, as if it was empty and had been for years. It was never really empty, though. Even if there was no living person inside, Danny could tell it was never completely empty. He looked up, hearing footsteps. Someone stood near the back, watching him closely. Danny smiled and slightly bowed his head. There's no need to worry. They already left, he said. The little girl stepped out and slowly looked around. She had an old flower-patterned dress and had her long hair draped over her face. She stared at Danny for a moment before turning away and leaving again. Danny looked back down. He felt terrible that those investigators scared off most of the souls. What kind of crazy person tries doing things like that anyways? Danny just hoped these guys wouldn't be overstaying their unwelcome time. I don't think that chapter was well written. Not at all. I could probably rewrite that to be better before I fully publish the book. Am I going to? Maybe. Two more chapters. First mention of our villain of the story in this chapter. I should not say that. Oh my gosh, I should not say that. First mention of the thing in this chapter. I have an old video that got really popular a while ago, and we're just gonna see if I can find it again. I have this old video here. This old video right here. Is it copyrighted? I don't have anything playing anyways. What song is even playing? Oh. I don't think I can play that song. But yeah. Just an old video I made. Like my third video ever. No, well, not true. A lot of old videos I make are just unlisted now, or privated. Or just straight up deleted. Because I hate them. I hate them so much. But yeah, I wonder who those two could possibly be. I wonder who that guy is. I have so many notes about him and I don't ever remember making them public. So only I know this. Ooh. Chapter 6. Buried Thoughts. Danny leaned back in the chair. It was it was incredibly uncomfortable, but it was the only place to sit in the library. He stared up at the ceiling, looking at the old boards that held the roof up. He looked over his shoulder when he heard a quiet slam. James stood over a little bit away from Danny. James stood a little bit away from Danny, standing over a table with a pile of books. Man, look at all these. Great find, huh? He asked and looked up at Danny. Danny smiled. I'm sure it is. What's that supposed to mean? James asked. Well, I don't really know what exactly you're looking for. I'm just assuming it's good, Danny tried to explain. James laughed a little. Did you get any sleep last night? He asked. You sound tired out of your mind, dude. Danny sighed and stretched out his arms. Not that good, but I did get some sleep, he muttered. James shook his head. After you spent the whole night printing out more pictures, or maybe after you stayed up for hours just to do useless research? Danny sat up and turned to James. It's not useless, you know that. Besides, I didn't even do anything last night. I just went to bed, he said. Really? That's hard to believe. Danny, no. James mumbled. He looked back down at his pile of books and started sorting them. Danny watched him for a few minutes. I thought you read about every book in here. James shrugged. Maybe I did, but I can't remember. These aren't medical books, though, so I doubt I read through these, he said. Danny stood up and walked over to the table. Really? What are they, then? He asked. James smiled and grabbed a book, holding it up to show his younger brother. This. Danny leaned down to look at it. It looks newer than everything else you've showed me. That's all you have to say? James asked and put the book back down. Well, it doesn't look like much of anything, Danny mumbled. James stared up at him for a moment before saying, It's a space book. I found it and looked through it a little, and it seems pretty great. I was thinking of letting Adriel read it. Oh. Danny looked at the book again. Yeah, I'm sure he'd love reading it, he said, and smiled weakly. James snickered. That's really all you have to say? Wow, you are tired, he said. No. Danny looked away. I'm not tired. Uh-huh, keep telling yourself that. Uh-huh. Keep saying that, James muttered and turned back to his books. I'm thinking of taking only 2 of these. I have one picked out already, but I'm not sure which one to pick now. What do you think? James asked. Danny looked back at the pile. I don't know, he muttered. James frowned. You're real helpful. So glad I brought you along with me to pick books out. You can't even make up your mind with anything today. Danny rolled his eyes. I'm going to go look around, he said. Yeah, you go do that. I'm going to stay here and do what we came here for, James said. Danny turned and started walking away. The floorboards creaked under his hoofs as he walked. The building had been up since Danny could remember, and he was surprised it was still standing for as long as it was. Danny turned and walked down the alley of bookshelves. He looked around, his gaze flying over the books. Nothing seemed that interesting to him. He looked away and stared out over the library. It was quiet, and only a handful of people were inside. Danny was about to turn away when someone called out to him. Hey, you're Mr. Scott, right? Well, I gotta think of, what voice to do. I don't know, Leon Kennedy. Leon Kennedy's voice, I guess. He's voiced by, Leon Kennedy, I guess. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. Danny looked over and saw one of those ghost investigators from the other day. He didn't have any equipment with him, which was a little strange. Oh, it's you, Danny muttered. Listen, I'm so sorry for what happened yesterday. the guy started. I don't know what got into my friend, and what he was doing was unacceptable. Danny blinked in surprise. It's fine, he said. Honestly, I don't really care about it that much. Which wasn't true, but maybe if he lied to himself, maybe he could actually believe it. Oh, and please don't call me Mr. Scott. It's just Danny. Oh, the guy smiled and nodded. Alright, I'm Leon, by the way, he said. Danny nodded. The guy was about to turn away until Danny stopped him. Hey, listen, if you want any possible hotspots, you can try to get your way into the town hall and look into the archives. It's fairly easy to get access to, but I think it might be better for you to go alone. Leon nodded. Thanks. And sorry again for what happened. I guess I might see you around town sometime again then? He asked. Danny froze. Oh, typo again! Oh, I gotta mute myself. Danny froze and smiled. Sure, he mumbled. Leon turned and started walking away. Danny stared after him for a moment. Does he actually want to talk? Danny wondered. He looked away and started looking at more books. Still, nothing really interested him. He looked over to a wall of books near the back of the building. These books were much older. Maybe they had been there for years. Most of them were dusty with worn-down spines, and some were much bigger than average. Danny started to walk away again, until he heard a bang behind him. He whipped around, only finding that a few books had fallen off the shelf. Danny sighed. He started putting the books back up, trying to make sure they were all put back in their places. Danny looked back down and realized he missed a book. Danny reached for it and picked it up, inspecting it. It was an old, charred, leather-bound book with a withered string tied around the cover. Danny gently removed the string and opened the book to the first page. The first words surprised Danny. Property of, and written in neat handwriting below that, Thomas Chambers. Danny looked up and glanced around the library. He stared back down at the book. Danny turned some pages and started reading a few lines. Alright, how are we gonna voice this guy? How are we gonna voice him? Creepy awe voice. Hold on. I don't know if I can. My voice hurts too much. I can't. Maybe in an audiobook version he is really creepy and sleazy and nasty. Or maybe he's not. Today had been strange. This town seems to be harboring resentment towards me. Perhaps they had heard the rumors about me. I can't imagine traveling with a circus did any wonders to ease their worries. Danny started flipping through the other pages to see how long the journal went on. A little over the halfway mark, the writing suddenly stopped. The last pages looked like they had taken fire damage, and a few words were smudged beyond recognition. How in the world did this get here? Danny mumbled to himself. What get where? Danny turned around to see James staring up at him. Just this weird book. It's not a library book. It doesn't have a sticker on it, and there's a name inside of it, Danny said. James glanced at the book. Huh. Maybe you can take it then. Maybe you can take it then? He suggested. Danny hesitated for a moment. He didn't really want to, but it was so fascinating. He had to know more about it. Do you recognize the name Thomas Chambers? He asked his brother. James shook his head. Nope, must be some dead or old guy. If they were still around, wouldn't they have their book with them instead of it being here? Danny looked back down. Yeah, you're right. I just don't feel good about taking it, though. He muttered. James smirked. It's fine, dude. Come on. Let's just get going now, he said and turned around, walking away from Danny. Danny looked back down at the book before quickly following after him. Huh? Okay, fixing it. Chapter 7. The Cursed Forest. This is the last chapter in the act, and the last fully written chapter I have that is partially revised. But I don't have an editorial team, so don't get on me with that. See you later, Danny, Angel called out to Danny. I'm gonna change that, actually. See you later, Danny, Angel called out. Danny smiled as he watched Angel walk off into the school, disappearing behind the doors. Danny turned away, starting his walk back home, just like every other weekday. It was fine. Danny didn't mind the habit. He liked making sure Angel got to school safely, but he wasn't sure if Angel felt the same. It's just for safety. I'm sure he understands that, right? Danny wondered. He sighed and shook his head. I'm worrying over nothing. Danny stopped at the end of the sidewalk. He glanced around, letting a car slowly pass by before he continued walking. He walked past a few people in silence, catching them taking quick glances at him. Danny passed by the church, ready to walk onto his street. He looked to his side when he started to hear talking. Out in the small grass clearing were the two ghost investigators. The two men stood by the chain-link fence. Leon held up the camera while his friend talked to it. Danny stared at them for a minute. What are they doing? What are they doing? Danny asked himself aloud. Leon seemed to notice Danny and looked over at him, smiling. Danny jolted back and debated on quickly walking away, but as Leon started walking towards him, he quickly realized that plan wouldn't work. Oh, hey, Leon said as he reached Danny. Good to see you again so soon. Hey, yeah, Danny mumbled out. He saw the other investigator walk up, wearing an unreadable expression. He felt so nervous about talking to the investigators again. He just wanted to leave and go home and rest. Oh, Danny, right? The guy asked. Danny nodded. Right. The dark-haired guy grinned. Hey, I'm Kai. Heard from the townspeople that you're the town's very own... Leon cut him off with a kick to the legs. That you can see ghosts. Kai here is very sorry about everything he said. Right? He asked. Kai looked up at Danny. Right. Danny glanced away. What were you doing by the fence? He decided to ask. Leon smiled. Oh, we were just filming by there to explain a little bit about everything we know about this town. Kai had an idea that since people seem to be afraid of the woods, we might try checking it out to see what's up, he explained. Then he felt his fur prick. No, you can't go out there. Do you have the slightest idea of what's even out there? Leon and Kai looked up at him, both sharing a look of dangerous curiosity. So there is something out there, Kai exclaimed. Danny flattened his ears. That doesn't mean you should go out there. There's plenty of spots in town with ghosts. You don't need to go out there, Danny said. I'll even show you where to communicate with ghosts. Leon gave Danny a curious stare, narrowing his dark eyes. You sound scared. What could possibly be so wrong with the forest? He asked. Kai smirked and piped up. What, scared because you know exactly what's out there? Ever been out there yourself before? Danny nearly choked as his heart skipped a beat. No, he said quickly. Kai's grin widened. You have been out there. You have been out there. You can show us around, right? Leon glanced at Kai. Hey, you weren't going to pressure him to help us. He's clearly uncomfortable about the whole thing. Kai rolled his eyes. Everyone else we've talked to has never been out there before. They're not even sure there is anything They're not even sure there is something out there. He knows something. We don't know that, Leon argued. Two started a loud argument as they continued. Danny glanced uncomfortably between the two. He slowly started to back away. I have been in the woods before, but Kai snapped his attention towards Danny. So you can show us through the forest. Leon glared at him. Danny continued. Well, Danny thought about it for a moment. If I do agree, that would mean I could get better footage of ghosts existing. Maybe I could... His thoughts trailed off. He warily grinned. He warily grinned. Well, as long as there's something in it for me, he said. Kai nodded. Of course! We'll get you anything you want, he said. Then he looked back at the fence. He stared for a moment before looking away. You have to let me have some of that footage. I'll be back to take you up on that offer, he muttered. Denny turned, quickly walking away before the two could say anything. He reached the house and quickly took out the keys. Denny opened the door and rushed inside. He grabbed his journal and camcorder, holding them in his arm. What's got you all excited? Danny jumped and turned to face James. Oh, I'm doing something, Danny mumbled. James stared at Danny. Yeah? Just something? He asked. Danny nodded slowly. Yeah. James frowned. What is it? He asked. Danny looked away. Well, I might have... Well, not yet, but I have sort of agreed to help someone out with something, he mumbled. James sighed. Dude, just tell me what it is. Drugs? What? No! Danny exclaimed. I'm not... This is so funny to read aloud, and I really hope no one else can hear me. What? No! Danny exclaimed. I'm not doing drugs. I decided to take up an offer with those investigators, he said. James blinked in surprise. Really? You? Danny nodded. Yeah, well... James held up his hand. Don't continue that. I'm coming with you, he said. Danny shook his head. No, I'll just be quick and... No, you're gonna go do something stupid, James said. Danny flattened his ears. No, I'm not. I'm not a child, he said in defense. James nodded. Yeah, true. I'm still going with you, he said and walked down the hall. Danny grumbled. I'll be fine. You don't need to worry about me. Going around with weirdos you don't know is safe to you? Would you let Adriel do something like this? James asked as he walked upstairs. Denny went quiet and sighed. He looked away, glancing out the door. He waited for his brother to get back. When he did, he carried along a wooden baseball bat with him. Why do you have that? Danny asked. James smiled. Safety, he said simply. Let's get going. Danny rolled his eyes and walked out the door, followed by his brother closely behind. Danny walked back to the investigators. They waited near the sidewalk, looking up when Danny got closer. Hey, you're back, Leon said. Danny nodded. Yeah, should we get going then? He asked. Leon nodded, hoisting his camera up on his shoulder and started walking away. He gestured to Kai, who followed after him quickly. Where are they going? James asked. Danny glanced at him. Just the woods. That's where you're going? James asked and stood in front of Danny. What could possibly be so important to go out there in the woods? Danny didn't answer that. It will be okay. It'll be quick. Just in and out, okay? James shook his head. They have to be paying you or something, he mumbled. Then he looked back towards the investigators and walked over to them. Leon looked at him. Do you happen to know how to get around the fence? He asked. Danny nodded and pointed away. Over there is a damaged part of the chains. You should be able to crawl through the fence there, he said. Leon nodded. All right, let's get going then. Leon and Kai started walking to where Danny had pointed. Danny looked back at the fence and stepped up to it. He took a moment to stare off into the woods before easily hopping over the fence. He looked back at James. His brother threw his bat over the fence and walked through the chains. James picked his bat up and smiled. We really doing this? He asked. Danny breathed out the autumn air, looking out over the tall pines. Yeah, he muttered. It'll be worth something, though. Believe me. James shrugged. Whatever makes you happy, bro. He muttered and walked past Danny, walking way ahead of the group. Danny stared at the trees. I'm really doing this again, he muttered. Danny looked around and walked over to the investigators. Kai dusted himself off and scoffed. Was that the only way to get past that? He asked. Yep, the only way for you, Danny confirmed. Leon started walking deeper into the woods. All right, and we are rolling, he said and turned to face Kai. Danny quickly walked ahead of the two, not wanting to be on camera. Kai started talking, his words sounding like he was reading off a script. Alright, we just got asked. Okay, I'm gonna be so annoying. I'm gonna be so annoying right now. Prepare thyself. Prepare thyself. Alright, we just got access to these haunted woods, and we're about to take a look at what makes this forest so haunted. We have our gear ready as we pass through these cursed grounds. Oh, I'm so scared thinking about what we're gonna do. We're here with our guide, and he's gonna show us the best haunted places here. Danny held his hand up as the camera turned to him. I think I'm good, man. I don't feel good about having my face in this, he said. Leon nodded and turned back to Kai. As Kai continued to drone on about how haunted and cursed this forest is, Danny started to see something in the distance. He narrowed his eyes and realized what it was. He stopped dead in his tracks, making the two guys stop as well. What is it? Leon asked. Is it some sort of monster or ghost? Kai asked. Danny shook his head. It's a shrine, he said in a soft tone. Danny slowly walked forward as he approached the shrine. Danny slowly walked forward. As he approached the shrine, he noticed James standing next to it, staring down at it. The shrine itself was made of a hand-cut stone. The stone shone in the dimmed sunlight from above the tree canopy, casting an unearthly glow against the white stone. It was cut into a small monolith, only reaching to be 4 feet tall. Engraved upon the side facing towards the town were words written in a different language, one Danny didn't recognize. The shrine was covered in moss and flowers that grew from the cracks. What's this thing for? Guy asked. For protection, Danny answered. It wards off evil from the town. It was made around when the town was first founded, he further explained. Really? So like one of those, Kai struggled to search for the words. One of those, shrines with paper covering them in Japan? Danny glanced over at him. I don't think you should be trying to compare things if you don't know anything about it, he said. Kai muttered something under his breath Danny couldn't hear. You think this is the same one? James asked. Danny looked at him. I think so, he whispered. James looked up at Danny. Well, go ahead, my dearest brother, he said and made a bowing motion. Danny chuckled a little. It was nice to have something to ease his nerves. This was his choice, though. There wasn't any turning back now. Danny took a shaky breath and walked past the stone shrine with the two investigators following in suit. Already, the air seemed to shift. A heavy presence filled Danny's heart with fear. The distant fog slowly crept in. "Let's keep heading forward," Leon said, and started to lead the group further into the woods. Yeah! Act 2! Oh, man! Act 2! It's done. My voice is dead. I've been recording for 2 hours. My voice is dead. I'm gonna go eat popsicles and lay in bed for the rest of the day and not explain anything else because I'm so tired and my brain has been fried from the sun. Yay! I read the first act of my book. Anyways, the link to read it yourself will be in the description, I guess. I don't know. I don't care. I don't really care. I'm so tired.